Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. Yes, it's been a very long time since I've made a video, and I was kind of hinting at this back in my June video that I was going to be gone for a while, and I apologize for my voice because I am just getting over being sick. If you have not read the title of this video, you probably don't understand why my background looks different. I am going to be explaining what happened to me over the summer um, through books. So let's get right into the video. So first off, before I get into what happened, there are there's two books that I did not get to share in my last video. Well, one that I didn't get to share in my last video that I finished before I made the video, and then there was another one that I finished shortly after that that didn't get shared. So before everything happened to me this summer, in the video before this, I was supposed to mention that I finished Enrique's Journey by Sonia Nazario. I was reading it for a junior student in the high school, and I ended up finishing it, but I didn't bring the book home because I gave it back, and then I couldn't remember that I read it, but I did, and I gave it a 3 stars out of 5, just because it was a little difficult to read with all the Spanish terms, and the locations was a little difficult because he kept moving along, but other than that, it was fine. And then I was watching my June video before I was filming this one, and a book that I actually finished in June, that I finished before I had a catastrophic summer. I finished This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone. I did mention it in my last video that that was going to be part of my summer TbR, and I did finish it in June. So the same month that I got it, I finished it, and then I got rid of it because I didn't realize that it was a LGBTQ book, which would make sense for June because it's Pride Month. But I gave it a 2 stars just because I couldn't really understand what was going on. Just that I know that the characters, there was blue and red, and I'm taking a guess that they were both girls, I'm assuming, I think, and they were battling against each other throughout time and falling in love with each other, like more and more throughout time, through letters that they would find in different time periods. So that's a lot for me to remember considering how long ago I read it. I don't know if you guys noticed, but it is now September, and I'm mentioning something I read back in June. Yeah, a lot has happened. So let me get into the first book that goes along with my story. So the first book that goes along with my story is this one. And if you have seen my June video, my May video, you'll be like, wow, why is this the start of your video? If you don't know what this book is, because you haven't been watching me or you're just living under a rock, this is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. It is the final Hunger Games series book that has to do with Hamish Abernathy and his journey in the Hunger Games. It came out on March 18th, 2025, so this year. And yes, I did get it from the store. It is a dystopian. It cost $28, and I got it as a birthday present. It was 4.6 stars, and I rated it. Well, it probably would have 4 stars because it was just that good. And it is 387 pages. And let's just start at the beginning. So at the end of June, I said that my bookshelf might not be my background anymore. And that's because I was planning on moving. Throughout my life of being with Griffin, if you don't know who Griffin is, he's my boyfriend that's been in other videos. I had always wanted to move by him, and I didn't know how to do it, like, in the most organized way possible. I had been looking for apartments, I had been looking through jobs while working at the high school, and nothing seemed to be working until I decided to keep applying for jobs and not figure anything out. So this is like past Memorial Day, and at the end of June, I got a call from Walgreens, and I was offered a position down like 20 minutes from where I live now in a small town called Hartford. And I'm allowed to say that because I don't work there anymore. You'll see why. So I accepted the job, and they kind of bantered me about starting work when I told them I needed 2 to 3 weeks to find a place to live. They were like, well, we'll have to not give you your job if you can't come and start working. So I had to come up with a temporary solution to be able to start my job, and that was to move here. I now live 3 minutes away from Griffin, and for the last 2 months, so July and August, I actually lived upstairs in a room, and now I live downstairs in the basement of a house that's owned by a lady of Griffin's parents, a friend of Griffin's parents. She goes to church with us, and she's super nice, and so she's letting me live here. I am still looking for an apartment. It's just been a little bit more difficult because the economy has been terrible with allowing people to rent with good prices. And you may say, what happened to the rest of your summer TbR? You had a whole stack of books that your sister gave you. You were going to read the Book of Dorian Gray. After that video that I filmed, as soon as I turned the camera off, I had gotten all this information about being able to move that I started packing up my whole library. My whole bookshelf got put into a box, and now is currently sitting at the apartment over 100 miles away from me. I unfortunately wasn't able to move everything down here with me, and so some of it had to stay behind, and that includes all my books, except for a small portion that is sitting in a storage unit a couple miles away from me that I cannot seem to be able to get into currently. And so all the books that you see in front of me are books that I have gotten out of free little libraries, except for the Hunger Games book, because that one didn't get packed in with all the rest of them because it is currently sitting in my book bag. And so the ones that Grace gave me, her books ended up going back to her eventually. I never did read them. I had a really hard time with moving because I was moving away from my family, and I was doing it spontaneously because I literally packed up my stuff. Everybody was on vacation. My parents were on vacation. My siblings were on vacation. And I got up the next morning and left them a note and left. So I know it's not the greatest situation. They were kind of upset with me for a while, but it all worked out fine. I moved in here with only a suitcase of clothes, and that was it. And that's all I lived with for a full week. And it was kind of difficult because I had to I didn't really start my job right away, so I had like maybe done 1 day of training, and that was it for the week. And I don't have any friends down here, but I choose not to have any friends because I'm very introverted, except for, you probably don't know that based on me speaking through a camera. Anyways, I also didn't read The Picture of Dorian Gray, and that one's also packed away. Excuse me. But I would like to read that as well. And if you are following me on Goodreads, you'll probably notice in July I had put that I started reading and finished this book. This is The Secret Life of Bees by Sue Monk Kidd, published November 8th, 2001. Is a historical fiction. It would have cost $14, but of course I got it out of a free little library in Hartford, actually. It's rated 4.1 stars, and it is 302 pages. I looked forever for this book, and I had saw it in a Goodwill, and I was like, "Ooh, I want to read this," because this was one of the books that the high schoolers used to read. But I decided I wanted it to get it for free, and so I went looking, and I finally found it after a while. But it says that I read it already. I had to do that, so like, I I am gonna be reading this. This is on my September TbR, and hopefully I get through it. But it is set in South Carolina, 1964, and it tells a story about a girl whose memory of her mother getting killed and stuff like that. I'm only reading the back book, so I don't really know that much about it. But uh, with me moving, this moves into the beginning of July, so I was here for the 4th of July. It was terrible for me because I have sensitive hearing, and so I had to deal with people doing fireworks all the time, and that includes being inside Griffin's house. I actually had to wear sped headphones because of how bad the fireworks were, and I absolutely hated it. And so I was working at Walgreens, living here, and things were grand. Moving along in July, I encountered things like I fell at the end of Griffin's driveway one day while coming back from work. And if you saw me in person, obviously you wouldn't see it now because I'm wearing pants, but if you saw me wearing shorts, you would notice I have a huge scar on my knee. I hit a lip in his driveway, and it caused me to rip open like my knee and like part of like the top of my leg, and it was brutal. It was ugly and gross, and I know that's not important to the summer, but that leads into my next book that I found. This is The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Bowley. I'm sorry if I say that wrong. Published March 16th, 2021. It is a YA thriller. It would originally cost me $19, but of course I got this from a free little library in the town over from me of Ocon, or as people in Wisconsin know it as Oconomowoc. Um, it is rated 4.3 stars and it's 496 pages, and this has to do with hockey, and I don't remember that much else about it. I know that the high schoolers read this at the beginning of last year for their Heroes Journey unit, and I kind of liked it, and I just randomly found this, so I thought, ooh, I would give this a try, and it's been sitting on my shelf ever since, but I haven't really had a lot of time to read because I've been dealing with such craziness. Like, I went to the county fair in Waukesha with Grace and Brandon and Griffin, and Griffin's chair got broken in the process of it, but it is fixed now. And they ended up getting a new dog named Nellie, and she is the sweetest thing in the whole wide world. But she is a puppy, and so she likes to chew on things and steal things like keys and Crocs and underwear. Moving along here with my summer, I decided that life wasn't the greatest. I was feeling a little sad from being away from my family, and work just didn't feel right to me. Obviously, it's a retail job, and I was just an aide moving to retail, so I didn't know exactly what to expect, but it was difficult work, basically a workout for a shorty like me. And I decided after many drives home at night and the multiple deer, because for some reason in southern Wisconsin there is more deer than central Wisconsin, which is really weird. I will never take my 2 to 5 minutes to work for granted ever again. That I needed a change, and so with a change came more things like another book. This is First Time Color by B.K. Borson. It was published February 11th of this year, 2025. It is a romance. It would have cost $19, but I got this out of a free little library in Menominee Falls, which is that way from me. And it is rated 3.9 stars and it's 420 pages. And this is about a guy who hosts a radio show about giving love advice who doesn't have love himself until he meets a girl that calls in for dating advice for her mom and kind of falls in love with her over the radio. And this leads into my parents coming down to see me for a weekend. And if you don't live in Wisconsin and you don't know what happened this summer to southern Wisconsin, um, we had this thing known as the 1,000 year flood. And so I have to say this why it's extraordinary that my parents came down when they did, because we were in Menominee Falls on a nice day, and then all of a sudden, um, as the evening went on, it was downpouring, and a road that we had just drove on in Menominee Falls collapsed from the rain, and things were getting flooded. Like the Wisconsin State Fair Park got flooded. People had to swim to safety. Um, there was people abandoning their vehicles on the roads because they were flooded so much over cars. The Potawatomi Casino and Hotel in Milwaukee was underwater for 3 days. People lost homes and cars and belongings and stuff. And it was very scary for me because of the thunder being as loud as it was. It wasn't normal. The rivers were overfilling, and they had to put trucks on bridges to keep them down so they wouldn't collapse. We have a dam that's just a little bit that way. Like, it's a little bit of a smaller dam, but the river was so overfilled that part of the reinforcement for the dam broke in from the water, and we were afraid that we were going to have to be evacuated because the dam was going to break. And so that was very scary for me. And of course, I'm living here on my own with just Griffin's family and who I live with to be able to tell me that it's going to be okay and that this is not normal. But we got through it. A lot of the places now are fine. Obviously, Griffin's job, Service Master, is working on the Potawatomi Casino. Um, just, it was extreme, and I thank the Lord that He kept the people who were working with people to get them to safety and us safe from like having water damage or being swim away and stuff. So with me not being with me not liking working at Walgreens, with everybody who knows what it's like to not like a job, you decide that you want to leave. So I decided that I would start applying for jobs. And I applied for a school known as Swallow District, Swallow School District. It is a district that's around here for elementary kids. And I did get an interview, and I thought it was the nicest school in the world. And it made me excited, and they told me no. So I tried again, and I applied at QuickTrip. I got an interview, and I waited, and they said no. Which leads me to my next book. So I've had this book before in my very old book collection, and I did read a little bit of it when I had it, but I don't think I really knew what I was doing or how to read at that time, so I had to put it down. This is a man called Ove. It is by Frederick Backman. It was published, I'm trying to read it, August 27th, 2012. It is a YA fiction. Would have cost $18, but I got this in a free little library in Pewaukee, and it was rated 4.3 stars, and it is 337 pages. I recently just got this book, but it just fits into my story really well with me not having the greatest time of being here. Living upstairs in the room was kind of, you know, it made me feel bad. Because I didn't have a lot of room, and I am used to living in boxes, and I was fine with it, but it just didn't feel like home to me. And my job obviously wasn't great. And then I got one day a message when I was working at Walgreens from a recruiter from a school district. Um, they were asking if I was interested in this position as a special ed aide. Um, and I said sure. And then they were like, "Oh, we would like to give you an interview." And they're like, "Could you come in?" And I said, "Sure." And I didn't think that the interview went really well. And I was thinking, I don't know if this is the job for me or not. But you know, good things happen because I ended up getting the job, which leads me into this next book. This is Happy Place by Emily Henry. This was published April 25th, 2023. It is a contemporary romance. It would have cost me $19, but I got it from a free little library in Pewaukee, the same as A Man Named Ove. It's rated 3.9 stars and is 388 pages. And the reason that these two go together so short in a short period of time is because I was scrambling to look for a job, especially when it came to school, in a short period of time, because my goal was always to move, find a summer job, go back to school. So when the title of this video says, I quit my job twice and I moved away from my hometown, from my family. I quit my job at the high school. I quit my job at Walgreens. And now I work at a school district with 3rd and 4th graders. And they are the sweetest people, sweetest kids in the whole wide world. I got to move down into the basement, into this bigger room, to be in a more happier place. If you're wondering what happened to my hair after the swallow interview, I was feeling really down, and the only way I could take my feelings out, I didn't want to eat my feelings out because I knew eating was not going to help me figure out my problems. So I cut my hair to make myself feel better, and also because my hair was getting very damaged because of how long it is. So I have one more book that leads up to today and where I am now. And this happens to be that life throws me through so many things, but I got back up again and kept trying and trying. And so with the end of summer coming, I had went home to be with my family and got to spend a lot of time with them before school started, and everything was happening so fast that the one worst thing about going back to school about doing is getting sick. I got sick before I went back to school, and it was terrible. It was bad that I went to school my first day, and the second day I called in. Because if I told you every symptom in the book, you would say to me, Hannah, you got COVID. Which is true. And you would say, did you go to the doctor and get diagnosed? No, I didn't. But I didn't need to know what I had. Because also, so did my sister and my mom. Everybody was getting it. Griffin was feeling kind of sick. And now I'm here. It's a Saturday night. And I'm sitting in front of a camera talking about books. And this is my last book video. This is The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck, published April 14th, 1939. It is a historical fiction. It would have cost $19, but I got it from a free little library in Pewaukee. Not the same one as those last two books. It is rated 4.02 stars and it is 502 pages. I know on Goodreads it says 496, but this is 502 from this one. And this is following a story of a person named Jode and their migration throughout the Dust Bowl period. And the reason I didn't say what happens in the last two books is because I don't really know, but that's okay. I plan on having uh, The Secret Life of Bees and The First Time Callers be on my September TbR. I don't have any YouTubers to report because I don't remember what letters I'm on. I can't say any movies that I'm going to be watching because I don't have my TV here or any of my movies because I had to leave them back home. And I'm okay with that because it gives me a lot more free time to be able to read my books and be able to explore. And that is all I got for you guys. So did you guys like this video? I hope so. Please give me a like down below and subscribe down below if you would like to see more videos. They're usually not this serious and not this long. Yes, they have to do with books, but my next video probably will not have to do with books as I'm going to a lot of festival and craft fairs because the season is upon us. So the next video will be hint hint about that. Also, turn on notifications if you would like to be notified when that video comes out. Also, if you like to read books just like me and you are on Goodreads, you can follow me with the link down below that has my name on it, and you can become friends with me and we can give each other book recommendations and talk about books and be friends. Yay! Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!